This is Covering the Spread. Here are your hosts, Jim Saunders and Dr. Ed Feng.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Covering the Spread. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com, where today we are previewing week number 5 of the NFL with Dr. Eric Eager of Pro Football Focus, looking at some early season takeaways and his favorite bets for week number 5. My name is Jim Saunders. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by Ed Feng, or Dr. Ed Feng. So we do the dueling PhDs on the show for today. Ed, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How you doing?
You're not too bad. A little nervous given the way things have broken in the NFL recently with the COVID positive test. I think the Patriots situation is probably the hairiest, just because they did play on Monday despite having the Cam Newton positive. So I kind of think at this point, you just kind of hold your breath. You hope for the best, and you hope the NFL will handle things properly. But it's hard to have a lot of confidence that will happen, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like if you're exposed to Cam, you're really supposed to quarantine for 14 days, right? So that clearly didn't happen. Now Stephon Gilmore has tested positive, and you see all these pictures of Gilmore right in Patrick Mahomes' face after the game, right?
Yeah.
So, like the sportsbook I was looking at, I can't find the Raiders-Chiefs game right now. So it's still up on FanDuel Sportsbook as we're talking around noon Eastern. So you hope for the best, man. We're still dealing with this. It's not just a sports problem. There's been some other news since we last talked as well. With COVID as well. It's like the last 2 weeks, I've definitely woken up Wednesday morning and thought, man, I'm glad I'm not doing a politics podcast today.
Yeah, I listen to enough politics podcasts to get that out of my system, which is nice. But it's weird to think that the debate was 8 days ago.
Exactly.
It's weird to think about how much has happened in that time. I can't keep up with the news ever. Every day I wake up and I check Twitter and it's something new that's happened. So It's been a very interesting couple of weeks. I hope that people start to take this thing seriously. It's only been 7 months to take it seriously. So, what better time than the present to finally take things seriously? But we'll see. I mean, you want the NFL to be smart, value player health and player safety, and hopefully we can get through this season. They will get through this season.
I think they will.
But yeah, they will. There's too much money on the line where they wouldn't. But you want to get through the season with as much health as possible. So hopefully they are consulting with the proper people to make that happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just a matter of, does Tennessee play 14 or 16 games? I mean, I think 16 games is unlikely if they are unable to get the game in this weekend.
Right.
And there were a couple more positive tests this morning, I think. So
too, yeah. Yep.
So that's tough. But, we're on track to get a Super Bowl and playoffs and all that stuff.
It's independent of the virus, but the product in the field has been fun to watch. I enjoy points, so I guess there is that. But hopefully they can get this thing wrangled in and we can watch some football. We're going to talk football with Dr. Eric Eager of Pro Football Focus coming up next. He is a data scientist at Pro Football Focus. He is the co-host of their PFF Forecast podcast, the betting podcast over there, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to talk to Dr. Eric Eager about Josh Allen. We're going to talk Justin Herbert. We are going to talk Kirk Cousins. We're going to talk about a whole lot of stuff to preview week number 5, early season surprises, coaching changes, and all that stuff. So we're going to talk with Eric in just 1 second. But first, we got a special show coming up tomorrow on Thursday. We're going to talk with Richard Johnson as well to talk some college football, our first college football podcast of the season. So make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread no matter where you listen to your podcast. College football podcast back for this week. It'll be an audio-only version, so not over on YouTube, but we'll have that posted tomorrow afternoon to break down what looks like a pretty fun slate of college football this week. So a perfect time to have Richard on the podcast to do that. Before we get to Dr. Eric Eager for today, we got to go back to last week and take a look at week number 4, where we had Donnie Seymour on to preview all the football that there was.
Covering the past.
Last week, as mentioned, we had Donnie Seymour on to preview week number 4 of the NFL. Make sure you follow Donnie on Twitter at RightSideVP. And Donnie wanted the Colts minus 2.5 in their game against the Bears, and also the over on the total at 44.5. And the Colts closed at -3. The total did dip to 43 by close, but Colts covered here, so we got that one. The under hit, so 1-1 in that game for Donnie. Donnie also wanted the over at 51.5 for the Bills versus the Raiders, and hopefully you bet that one when Donnie recommended it, because it closed at 53 and it ended up hitting right at 53. So hopefully you got that one right when Donnie mentioned it. Then Donnie also wanted Cleveland plus 4.5 against Dallas, and that one looked pretty good by the end of the day. They did close at 3.5, so closing line value, and of course a win because they won that game outright. Finally, you and Donnie went head-to-head on Lions versus Saints. That was another situation where I woke up to news, because I woke up at 2:30 to take out our puppy for the potty, and I don't know why I just said potty on air. Regardless, I went to take her to the bathroom because I'm an adult human, and I saw a push notification saying that a Saints player tested positive. I could not get back to sleep because I was like, oh man, what do I do with my DFS lineups? It's a nightmare. Not that that's the most important thing. Wake up and it's fine. So that was exciting. And exciting for you too, Ed, because you had the Saints -4. Donnie had the Lions +4. The Lions did score late to cut it to 6 points, but did not cover there. So you get the win in that one. Even with that, Donnie was still 3-2 on the week. So make sure you follow him at right side VP. But that was an emotional roller coaster. And I legit could not get back to sleep once I saw that the Saints had that positive test.
Wait, was it a false positive?
It was. Yeah, it was a false positive. They retested. It was 7:30 on Sunday morning when they announced that it was a false positive, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get back to. I was talking to there's a guy in Syracuse named Britt Devine who's another DFS player, and I was talking to him on Monday, and he was like, "Yeah, I woke up early because he had to take his dog out too, and he saw that there was this positive. He's like, I had to set my alarm 45 minutes early to change DFS lineups, and." It wound up being nothing, thankfully, but it definitely gave me an extra level of stress, which I was not looking forward to.
Yeah, for sure. Just a few thoughts on that game. I don't think I was aware when I talked about it on the show that two of their cornerbacks weren't going to play.
Well, Lattimore, I think, practiced on Wednesday. I think he was limited Wednesday, and then he was out Thursday, Friday. So at the time we recorded, I don't think it was known he was going to miss.
Yeah, I don't think it was known. I don't know what was going on with Jenkins. I don't remember seeing him on the injury report when I bet the game. So, and then I usually head out to watch a couple games at one time, and I walk in and Detroit's up 14-0. So I was like, that's a bummer. So you get a little feeling coming in. But literally as soon as I sat down, the stress kind of went away because New Orleans started scoring, which is what you expect. Drew Brees actually threw a bunch of intermediate passes in this game.
He had nine throws out of 25 that were at least 16 yards downfield.
Which no one was expecting given what he had done.
I think he had 7 deep throws the entire year before that point, and he had 9 in week 4. Yeah.
So I don't know what he saw. Obviously, the Detroit Lions defense is not very good. They're sticking around with this Patricia guy, but he was the guy that was supposed to at least get it done on that side of the ball. And then the Saints go up. I think they were up 2 touchdowns. Detroit scores late, but there was no way in my mind, and obviously, nothing's ever 100%, but there was no way in my mind that New Orleans wasn't going to get a first down and keep the ball on the clock. So it was a relatively stress-free game, which don't come often. And
if you can get a stress-free game when it opens up, you're down 14 points and down 18 once you count the spread. That's always a good feeling.
Well, that part was stressful, but the rest of it, honestly, really wasn't.
Right.
So
take it. After the chaos after the chaos that was Rams Bills, I think you'll certainly take that for sure. So Ed gets the win there. I had the over at 52.5 for Panthers Cardinals, and hopefully, unlike with the Donnie one, hopefully you wait to bet this one, because at the time we recorded, there were no injury reports out yet. DeAndre Hopkins wound up being banged up, and as a result of that, the total went down to 51 at one point. It closed back up at 53 once it was clear that Hopkins was going to play, and it finished with 52 points. So the outcome here depends on when you bet it. I said to bet it at 52.5, so that one did not work, and I get a loss there. But hopefully it worked better for you, and you were able to snag it at 51 or 51.5 because my faith in my lack of faith in the Cardinals defense didn't necessarily pan out. Maybe it's more Kyler. We'll talk to Dr. Eric Eager about that in just 1 second. But first, betting on the NFL is great. Betting on the NFL risk-free is even better. FanDuel Sportsbook is giving you a chance to bet on Week 5 of the NFL season risk-free with their exclusive single-game parlays, or same-game parlays. Simply place a 3-leg or more parlay on any NFL Week 5 game to be eligible for the offer and follow along as the game unfolds. If you don't win your bet, FanDuel will refund your bet up to $10 in site credit. What do you have to lose? 21 plus and present in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, West Virginia, Indiana, Colorado, or Iowa. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Terms apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Or in Colorado, call 1-800-522-4700. Or in Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. I thought there was only one more in there, but there were several. So, hey, we got through the disclaimer, and we are ready to put in those same game parlays. We're also ready to bring on Dr. Eric Eager. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at PFF_Eric. Check out his work at PFF.com and in the PFF Forecast podcast. We're going to preview week number 5 and see where Eric is leaning for this week.
Covering the present.
Let's bring on Dr. Eric Eager of Pro Football Focus to preview week number 5 across the NFL. Eric, thank you for spending your time for you today. How you doing?
You know, guys, I've expressed this to both of you at times. I didn't even know if we'd have a season. So the fact that we're having one, even with the hiccups, understood, I'm good. We get football almost every night of the week now. So can't complain.
And the hiccups that are happening, I feel like they were gonna happen at some point, and the fact that we made it 3 clean weeks beforehand is impressive. It's just a question of what kind of happens from here on out. And so you're hoping the NFL will handle things well. I don't know. Based on what happened last week, I'm not sure if we can say that'll happen, but it'll be interesting for sure. But we haven't gotten to talk to you since the draft, Eric. So how did the summer go for you? How'd you keep yourself busy during that time? Any new hobbies during that time?
You know, I was talking on my forecast, or my podcast, the PFF Forecast. I was talking to Andy Molitor, who I think you guys have had on before, and I told him I was just tailing his golf picks all summer. That was what I was doing. That and Madden Sims, which I think crosses a line of degeneracy I never thought I'd get to. But yeah, I mean, just trying to prepare for things. We built a bunch of different tools that are on our site that are a lot of fun. DFS optimizer, a props tool, all that kind of stuff. And, it was sort of tough because, we were building all these things and not knowing necessarily if we'd have a season. Right. And so that was a little nerve wracking, but it looks like it was time well spent.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have that downtime, might as well make the most of it. It seems like you definitely did. So let's talk here about week number 5. And we've actually got 4 weeks of data for almost every team in the book so far. And you can kind of pick up on play calling tendencies even before that. But we got really good data by this point on those play calling tendencies. You were going through some of them on Twitter yesterday. Which teams have stood out to you as being either interesting, at least, either in the positive or negative sense in terms of play calling for 2020?
Yeah, I don't know if this is just, anecdotal or narrative driven, but I feel like coaching has never been more important than it is currently. Yeah. You look at some of the teams, Kyler Murray, for example, I think is extremely limited right now, whether it's his own aggressiveness or his receivers. But Cliff Kingsbury has sort of elevated him again to a quarterback of a 500 team, which is, I think, remarkable. Kevin Stefanski has taken all the good things from Minnesota and discarded most of the bad things, and he has that Browns team at 3-1, their best start in seemingly forever. Shanahan has, a Niners team that isn't talented really at all after a lot of injuries, especially to their quarterback. And I know that they had a hiccup on Sunday Night Football, but they're, again, 500 in the thick of things. Whereas you look at the negative side, New York, Philadelphia, New York Jets are all sort of clustered together. And you look at some of their fundamentals, and it's like, well, the Jets and Giants don't run any motion. They don't run hardly any play action. They don't go down the field very much. There's not really a ton to like with them. And it's like, how do you expect your young quarterback to do? And that was one of the things I tweeted out yesterday, which seems sort of prophetic now. It's like, I look at actually Washington, they use play action 35% of the time. They use motion 62% of the time. And I said, if they could get average quarterback play, they could be pretty good, especially in a weaker division. And of course, they go out and bench Dwayne Haskins today. I don't know if his replacement's going to be any better,
right?
But they're certainly trying. And that's the thing. I think when you look at a lot of these teams, the Buffalo Bills are trying. Like, Buffalo Bills are awesome. I mean, from a team perspective, they do so many things right. And if Josh Allen met a certain requirement, that was going to be a good team, and he's met that requirement and then some. Whereas you look at other places, it's just unfortunate how much talent is being wasted.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into Josh Allen a little bit more. I mean, is this for real? I mean, you look at a ton of quarterback statistics and the grades that you guys have over at PFF. He's been awesome. Is it sustainable?
The level at which he's playing currently is not sustainable. That's not to say that he is going to go back to being poor. But, just a couple of statistics. He's leading the NFL this year in percentage of passes that are positively graded. Pass leaders in that statistic were Ryan Tannehill, who's actually still good at that this year through 3 games for him. But like Mitch Trubisky is also in that list, right? Like, there's a lot of volatility there. His passer rating when under pressure is higher than when clean, which, we've talked about before. Right. That's a results-driven thing. The passer rating when clean is a little bit more process-driven thing. Now, he's been great when clean. It's just that when you merge those two things together, you get the outrageous play, almost 0.4 of an expected point per drop back. That's really the concern. Now, he's limited the negative plays, I mean, to a degree that we've never seen before. So I think that offense is still going to be very good, but I don't know if he's going to be in the conversation for the MVP the way that he is now. Let's say, fast forward 4 weeks. They have a tough schedule. They've had a top 5 easiest schedule through 4 weeks. They have a top 5 most difficult schedule through the next 13. So, he will regress. That doesn't mean the Bills aren't going to win the AFC East or have a chance for the 1 seed, though.
So you were talking about the fundamentals and how Buffalo's doing things right. How much does that increase your confidence in Josh Allen, not maintaining where he's at, but continuing to be a lot better than he was previously, knowing that Buffalo is doing those things correctly from a play action and a pass rate perspective?
Yeah, and investing in the receiver position. So, the thing that, we always got a lot of flack for was how much we thought receivers were valuable. And it's clear now when you add, John Brown, Cole Beasley to the mix last year, there was an uptick in efficiency. And then you add Stephon Diggs, who I think, was the Vikings' best player. You now get guys running wide open, and the margins are so much bigger now. The edges are so much bigger. The fact that Buffalo clearly knows this and, is working from that set of assumptions makes me believe that even if we get a downtick in Allen, whether it be accuracy or just luck, there's still going to be a good offense.
Yeah, the erratic plays have still been there for Josh Allen at times. They've just been less plentiful, as you said, and that can be in itself can be a major positive. Let's talk about some games here in week number 5 with you, Eric. Starting out with Indy at Cleveland, kind of a sneaky fun game, I think.
Really
the line here is now Indy minus 1.5. The total is 47.5 here, and I think, we talked about Stefanski, but, I think the headliner here is kind of Indianapolis's defense because they've been lights out so far. We know they have additional personnel there this year from what it was last year, especially along the defensive line. But we know that defensive performance isn't sticky from year to year, so why would it be sticky over 4 weeks? So when we're looking long-term, where are you expecting this Indianapolis defense to settle out?
Yeah, if you look at Indianapolis, they've had a top 3 easiest schedule in the NFL so far this year, tied with Chicago. And only ahead of them has been Pittsburgh and San Francisco. So there's clearly some opponent adjustment that needs to be added. I think when I'm looking at our grades, which have a pretty, I think, strong prior, we have Indianapolis as the 6th rated defense in the NFL. So pretty good, but not, of course, the record-setting pace that I think a lot of just the raw metrics would say. When I look at this game, I think that, at 1.5, and I personally bet Cleveland on the money line and plus 2.5 when those numbers came out. And that usually I do that just straight based on the rough power rankings. And then when we start to get the injury information and stuff, we'll put more into the model, which I think this number is probably correct. But when I look at this game from a betting perspective, currently, I like the total. I mean, I think right now in the NFL, if you're getting 2 quarterbacks who are above average, and you're getting a total in the 40s, I have to see significant changes in the way the game's being officiated before I ever consider an under in that circumstance. So when I look at 47 and a half, depending upon where you look, I'm going over that. The Browns have, their biggest weakness this season ago was play calling and offensive line. And Kevin Stefanski has done a terrific job, not only in calling plays, but getting Bill Callahan in there. Callahan has his offensive lines since 2006 have generated the third most wins above replacement. He's a terrific coach in that realm. And so you're going to get pass protection there. Indianapolis has really eaten up bad offensive lines with Buckner and Houston. It's going to be a little bit mitigated this week. And their weaknesses on the back end, I think, will be more exploited by Beckham and Landry. As far as the Colts, like, their offensive line is terrific too. And the Browns, really feasted, when they had success defensively against the Cowboys, really feasted on, some of the deficiencies in Dallas's offensive line due to injuries. That's not going to be the case here. Colts are a little banged up on the outside, but can certainly, beat you with the tight end, Mo Alley Cox, and T.Y. Hilton as the lone remaining star wide receiver. So I see points in this game. I think it's going to be awesome. As you said, it's a perfect, sneaky, like, oh my gosh, this is actually a good game type of game.
Excellent. Let's move on to Minnesota at Seattle. You were on my podcast a couple weeks ago, and you said Minnesota is a 6-10 team. I was wondering if anything had changed your mind and how that affects what you think about Seattle as a 7-point favorite and pretty high total of 57.5.
Yeah, I mean, this is another one where this game entirely comes down to how Kirk Cousins plays, because I think that there's going to be a number of constants. The Vikings defense is not getting any better. They have one guy who can rush the passer at times, although he was neutralized by Laramie Tunsil the other day, and Yannick Ngakoue. They're missing Anthony Barr as a playmaking linebacker. Harrison Smith has played well. Anthony Harris, their franchise player, has played weaker this year, and their corners are a nightmare. Whereas Seattle on the outside, David Moore is a really good third receiver, but their top two receivers, I think, are the best in the NFL as a pair in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So I think that Seattle putting up 30 is the table stakes in this game. That's I think a given. They've done it every single week, even against a really good New England defense who was fairly effective against Kansas City on Monday. But you look at Seattle, they can't rush the passer. They got a lot of the same problems the Vikings do on defense. They can't rush the passer. They're banged up in the secondary. I know last week they were without Adams, but they were also without Dunbar. Both of those guys are questionable this week. If they don't play, there's a ton of opportunity for Justin Jefferson, who's currently our highest graded wide receiver over the last 2 weeks, as well as Adam Thielen. Irv Smith has not been involved very much, but he certainly could be. There's nothing keeping him from being involved there. So it sets up for the Vikings to have a pretty efficient day offensively. So the question, it almost always boils down to, can Kirk Cousins take advantage of that? Does he limit the mistakes that sometimes have haunted him, the 6 interceptions so far this year? Because if he does, I think that this number might be a little bit too high. If he doesn't, this is another example of the Vikings getting blown out. So I'm probably off this game. Obviously, I kind of want to look at the derivative markets, let's say a Seattle team total, maybe a first half total or something like that. But as far as the spread, I think that the odds makers and the bettors that have shaped this line have probably nailed it.
So beyond just – go ahead, Ed.
I was going to say, I feel like Seattle team total is probably like the most low variance prediction we can make out there, right? Given with what we've seen, obviously there's still some randomness. Do you still think Minnesota's a 6-10 team, or are you a little bit more optimistic after the past 2 weeks?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I look at to me, the issue was, the issue was I didn't think they want to play a defensive minded game. And that's Mike Zimmer, and it's worked for a number of years for him. I just don't think it can work now. And Kirk Cousins is too inconsistent, I think, to trade blows with the quarterbacks that are on their roster. Or on their schedule. So this week they go to Seattle. Russell Wilson this season has, when he's dropped back to pass, he's produced a negative play on 7.5% of his throws. That's the least number in the league. So he's only had one turnover-worthy throw in 159 dropbacks. So there's just no, as you said, Ed, there's no variance there. And so what you're getting out of Wilson is very narrow. they have Atlanta at home. That's a winnable game for them. But then they go to Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers so far this year has not produced one turnover-worthy throw all season.
Really?
So yeah, and so it's just a remarkable. So again, so if they come out of that 1-2, now you're talking about a 2-5 start. Detroit is another team where, their defense sucks, but their offense is actually pretty good and can move the football, as we saw against New Orleans. They still have Dallas left on their schedule. They have Carolina, who I got to say, Teddy Bridgewater has played extremely well over the last few weeks. And then they have Gardner Minshew, which I know the Jags have struggled, but their schedule, and then they have Tom Brady as well on their schedule. All the question marks I had in their schedule about, okay, would this quarterback be good this year? All of them have been answered in the affirmative, and their easy outs, Carolina and Jacksonville, I think from their defense's perspective, are not easy, and they're again going to have to score points. And when I look at Kirk Cousins, I just simply think he's too volatile to say, okay, well, you guys need to win. You guys need to be pretty good over the next 12 games. To sort of avoid a negative fate. Like, I just can't see it. So I think that they'll be more entertaining than I thought after week 2. And they're, it won't be as, desolate as I thought, but I don't think that they're going to be a winner this year.
Yeah, shootouts are always fun, so we can at least get behind that. Like, if you're going to play bad defense, at least give them some offense, and Jefferson has definitely helped with that. It's a slight tangent here, but you talked about Aaron Rodgers, and we've talked with you a lot about him because last year was a very weird year where the Packers overperformed what they should have done, but now Rodgers is back to kind of what he was previously. Sometimes you mentioned no turnover-worthy plays. That's been a criticism of Rodgers at times because he's been too conservative, throwing balls away, not being aggressive enough, not enough Jameis in him. Are you thinking that Aaron Rodgers is I don't want to say back, I don't know, it's a weird way to phrase it, but do you think that he will keep an elevated level of play for the rest of the way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, his average depth to target's over 9. His big time throw rate's almost 10%. But the other thing is his accuracy percentage. I mean, he has made throws that have either been caught or dropped when they're aimed 80% of the time, which, you look at his completion percentage over the past few years, there's just a lot of throwaways. And there's a lot of giving up on plays. And he's been such a good quarterback in the structure of the play, which is a fundamental change for him over the past few years. So, when I look at it, I don't see that changing anytime soon. And, the things that he just simply didn't trust anything over the past 3-4 years. And even the first year of LaFleur, he didn't trust, the process that much. But you're looking and he's without top receivers and he's still throwing the ball, to the tight ends that haven't been drafted or the wide receivers that aren't names. And, that's a really good sign if you're a Packer fan, because it was really the thing that was keeping him back. There was always the top plays. There was always the really good plays. But there weren't these consistent back foot hits, best arm talent in the league besides Mahomes, zingers to tight ends and stuff that you've never heard of. And that's really where I think that the trust has emerged, and it's been a good development for them.
All right, let's keep the quarterback talk going here. Move to the Monday night game. The Chargers at the Saints. The total here is 50.5. The Saints now 8.5-point favorites for this one. Let's talk about Justin Herbert because we've got a 3-game sample on him now. It's not a robust sample, but it's something. Has what you've seen from him so far in that sample altered any of your thoughts on him coming out? Because I know that, you were not a big Herbert guy, but it's still a small sample with him. So any alterations for you based on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been tough. He's taken a lot of hits, and he's delivered footballs. So, some of the stuff at Oregon, I always thought he was a little soft and stuff. But 3-game sample is what it is. The cool thing for the Chargers offense is they've taken, every air yard has become 1.26 actual passing yards, which those things tend to regress, where your offense is getting yards after the catch, or, they're just super efficient with the opportunities that they're getting. So I say this about Burrow as well. Like, when you look at rookie quarterbacks, you have to untangle the impressive from the encouraging, or the good from encouraging. Yeah. So, when you look at Herbert, he's been, I would say, a middle-of-the-pack quarterback in terms of the fundamentals. So is that great? Do I really want to buy into that consistently? No, but if I'm a Chargers fan, I think, okay, if I get natural progression from one year to the next, that's encouraging. Same thing with Burrow. That offense hasn't been all that efficient with him throwing the football, but you look at everything he's had to overcome, which is, AJ Green not playing well, an offensive line that isn't great, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's encouraging. So if Burrow, if things fall into place, he can be a great quarterback. And I think those are the mistakes we made. Like, Murray last year was encouraging, but not good. Baker Mayfield, his rookie year was very encouraging, but still kind of just slightly above average. And so then we're all surprised by the sophomore slump of Mayfield. It's like, well, that's just part of the progression. If perturbations happen, which they do, you could see a fall off. So that's what I say with Herbert. I think it's very encouraging. It's awesome that he hasn't come out of the gate looking terrible. But as far as like in the betting markets and things like that, I wait a little bit on that. I mean, they didn't even, I guess they covered the closing number, but they didn't cover the other day against Tampa, despite how well he played.
Right, exactly. So they've got, they're getting 8.5 here against the Saints. Michael Thomas might be back for New Orleans. So do you see the Chargers keeping this one close and covering or no?
That's a lot of points with Breeze not throwing the ball downfield. I mean, they were great offensively the other day and still wouldn't have covered this number against Detroit. So again, I think this is a play. I think this is sort of daring people to bet the Chargers, and I don't know if I can go that far. There's a lot of injuries in the secondary for the Chargers currently, and then on offense, Keenan Allen's been great, but it's very concentrated there. Mike Williams has both been hurt and ineffective, and then Austin Eckler, who probably doesn't move the betting market much, but again, is somebody who, as a receiver, is, I think, a plus player in this offense, and he's out for a while. So there's a lot of, and then, the Saints, frankly, have a lot of talent defensively. We haven't seen it come together very much, but against an offensive line like the Chargers, I think that they could probably produce some issues for Herbert, given, again, the long time for, the New Orleans Saints to sort of prepare for him, the extra day's rest.
Yeah, and the Saints had their top two corners out last week, so we'll see if they can come back and be effective. Eric, is there any other games that you like on FanDuel Sportsbook?
I hate this. I absolutely hate this.
This is going to be good. I like it already.
Yeah, I like it already. Exactly.
I think the Falcons-Panthers game presents opportunities.
Nice.
Let me look and make sure that on it's the same number that I'm getting in my internals. That's on FanDuel here.
It's at 54.5 now. It's gone up. It was 52.5, I believe it opened, but it's gone up 2 points.
I support that movement.
Okay, good.
Wholeheartedly. And the spread here is so Carolina's taking a lot of money, it looks like, and at 3.5, I really supported that move. I think I have a decent position on Carolina even before. So last week on the look aheads, I thought Carolina would outperform the market. I thought Atlanta, could be a disaster. So I was gonna bet the 3.5 anyway, and I did, and I think it opened still at 3.5 or 2.5 maybe.
Yeah, 2.5,
and
yep.
Carolina has continued to get money here. I might go backwards and actually go Falcons, despite everything. The Panthers are a team that again, they're like every team in the NFL seemingly. They can move the ball offensively. Bridgewater, I think, has been a very good addition to them, not for their tanking,
right.
frankly, but for them to be competitive. DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson have been awesome. I think they've taken the vast majority of the air yards in that offense and done awesome things with them. And I think they're going to score, but I think Atlanta can score with them in the dome. The familiarity, with some of the things and the Panthers defense is garbage. I mean, they have not been tested the last 2 weeks because Herbert turned the ball over a lot against them in LA, and the Arizona Cardinals are just, the yards per completion is just atrocious for them. I think the Falcons stretch out the Panthers here. I want to see if Julio Jones plays. He was on a pitch count Monday night, but if Julio Jones plays, I think Atlanta's the right side here, weirdly, even after everything we've seen.
Okay, I like it. It's been the Panthers defense is one I wanted to go into the season being aggressively low on. It was great in week 1, but then since then it's just been such a weird season for them. Like you said, Herbert turning the ball over, Kyler, I don't know if it was because of DeAndre Hopkins being banged up or what happened there, but just a really weird start to the year for them. It's been strange for sure. Yeah,
I think the Panthers have probably been the most mispriced team in the entire market, right? week one they closed 2.5 3-point underdogs to the Raiders. And even somebody who is holding a Raiders ticket, I feel lucky that
Right.
covered. I think fundamentally they probably were better against the spread that game than the Raiders were. And then you look at week two, the Tampa Bay game, they closed 8-9, 7.5 maybe, and they covered that number except for that long touchdown by Fournette, which was kind of fluky, and people probably overreacted to that. And then they opened as 7.5-point underdogs to the Chargers with a rookie quarterback making his first week long. His first start was an emergency, so his actual first start that closed at 6, I think, and they won outright. And then they're big dog. They eventually were a field goal and a half dogs to Arizona, which I didn't think made sense either, given everything. I think finally people are starting to sort of bet into Carolina, and I think in this case it's probably a little bit too much.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater's been fun so far, and let's hope he can keep up and keep on going, because the world's a better place when Teddy is playing well. That is Dr. Eric Eager of Pro Football Focus. Make sure you check out the PFF Forecast podcast and get all of his work there and at pff.com. Eric, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much, and good luck to you in Week 5 in the NFL and also with your college football stuff, too.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Covering the future.
Big thank you once again to Dr. Eric Eager for swinging by and breaking down week number 5 of the NFL. And Ed, it's always fun to have Eric on because you know that he puts the work in. You know there's a lot of intelligence there to help grasp the concepts. And I just like picking his brain on quarterbacks because he knows what he's talking about there. And it's fun to hear his insights.
And from what I hear, that position is kind of important.
A little bit. I don't want to, I don't want to go too far and say the quarterback might matter, but there's a possibility quarterback does matter. Yes.
Yeah.
But big thank you once again to Eric for swinging by. Follow him on Twitter at PFF_Eric, and also check out the PFF Forecast podcast for more of Eric's betting knowledge. Let's move now into covering the future. And Ed, you had a bet lined up earlier, but then things shifted with the news that Dwayne Haskins is heading to the bench for Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I did want to talk about Washington +9 at home versus the Rams. And the reason that game is interesting to me is that the Rams weren't a favorite in their first 3 games. Ended up being a push against Dallas, and then they were a dog both at Philly and at Buffalo. And that, in a sense, was pretty consistent with the idea preseason that they were, a pretty league average team. Right in the fat middle of the NFL. I think they were like 14th when I looked at some of my preseason metrics, which I feel very good about. And then all of a sudden they became I think a 13.5-point favorite at home against the Giants. And so you either have to believe that the Rams are a Super Bowl contender or a top 5-ish type team, at least 5 points better than NFL average, or that the New York Giants are just, the worst team in NFL history, even though they still have their starting quarterback. And so my numbers, liked, Giants plus 13.5 or whatever it was. And then, when you basically had to make that same type of assumption when you were looking at Washington +9 against the Rams. So things have changed. Dwayne Haskins has apparently gotten benched. That line has moved a little bit further back. I'm not sure if Dwayne Haskins getting benched really matters that much. They're going to start Kyle Allen. But now that number is closer to where it probably should be with +7. So anyways, that all happened this morning. And I was like, let's figure out another game to talk about. And so let's talk about Las Vegas, because this is a franchise that's actually interested me for a while. Because a couple years ago, they were 4-12, but they were 10th when I looked at my adjusted passing success rate, which is pretty good. And last year, they improved all the way up to 4th in that same statistic. And you really saw, you still had Derek Carr, John Gruden as the coach, but the tight end Darren Waller and the rookie wide receiver Hunter Renfrow really kind of emerged last year, pushing that number up. And similar to what we talked about with Dr. Eager about how receivers, they kind of matter. And they're doing even better this year in 2020. They're 3rd when you look at adjusted passing success rate. And so, it's almost like Derek Carr is kind of like a younger version of Drew Brees, and probably not as good, but high completion percentage, low average depth of target, completing a lot of passes, being highly efficient. And, this offense is pretty good. The defense is not. They put in a bunch of resources. So far, they're ranked 21st when I look at adjusted success rate. So not particularly good But I think they're at least the league average NFL team, given what Carr is doing with the offense. And Kansas City is the best team in the NFL. I don't think anyone kind of disputes that at this point. But it just takes a lot to cover almost 2 touchdowns at home. And there's also some interesting, when you look at the past results, I think that's kind of affecting how large the spread is. Las Vegas lost to New England and Buffalo the last 2 weeks. But part of the problem was 5 fumbles. So definitely, there's a little bit of skill in fumbles, but like having 5 fumbles in 2 games is not something that's going to continue. They had a -2 turnover differential in both games, actually without throwing a pick. But the Raiders had better success rate in either one of those games. And then we saw Kansas City beat New England on Monday night, a pretty definitive 16-point win. But there was a lot, the underlying statistics were a lot closer. And when you think about, the Patriots had a couple fumbles, dumb plays that didn't allow them to kick some field goals. And then there was a pick 6 that went right through the hands of a Patriots receiver. That's just dumb luck. So that game probably wasn't as definitive a win, even though they were playing the backup quarterback. So I think a lot of those things are affecting the magnitude of this line. If they play this game, like Las Vegas plus 13.5, obviously we talked about, they might not. And maybe the prudent thing is not to play this game. But sure. If they do, I'll take the points here.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting line at 13.5 because that's just like, it's kind of like you said, the Chiefs are a Super Bowl contender, so we have that component of it, but like the Raiders aren't the worst team in football, especially because it seems like Henry Ruggs could be back this week. He's missed past, I think, the 3 games now, and he could be back. I think he was doubtful last week as opposed to completely out. So if they get Ruggs back, that helps everything within their offense. It helps out Darren Waller, helps out Josh Jacobs, helps out Derek Carr. So 13.5 just seems like a really big number. And I would also be really intrigued by that one. And I think they're a fascinating team too, because the success rate, like you said, was there. But once they get Henry Ruggs back, it's possible they can expand beyond just success rate and get some of those big time plays too, something that was lacking previously for them.
Yeah.
All right, so Ed likes the Raiders plus 13.5. For me in covering the future, I want to talk about the Baltimore Ravens because this slate includes a lot of projected non-competitive games, and it is not my forte from a betting perspective to bet on those games. And I know that. I know that my forte is trying to find totals in competitive games and going there. So instead of looking at a game total or a spread, I want to look at a team total here, and that's the Ravens over 32 points, which is -110 at FanDuel Sportsbook. And there are a couple of reasons I want to lean this way. The first one is I don't really want the game total in this one because I don't have a ton of faith in the Bengals to put up points against this Baltimore defense, and betting a total forces me to at least in some way depend on them. So I'd rather go with just the Ravens here, and this will also be the softest defense the Ravens have played in quite some time. They opened with Cleveland and Houston. Neither of those teams have good defenses, but since then, they played Kansas City and Washington. Kansas City is 5th in numberFire schedule-adjusted defensive metrics. Washington is 7th, whereas the Bengals are 27th. So in their 2 games against the weaker teams, the Ravens scored 38 and 33 points, both of which are over this total. The Bengals have not faced an offense as good as Baltimore's because there aren't many as good as Baltimore's, but they did let up 35 points to Cleveland on Thursday Night Football. I'm not expecting Cincinnati to put up a big fight here, so the Ravens may need to do this early before they go into coast mode, as they did last week against Washington. But even that one, they still scored 31 points. I think 32 is lower than it should be with the firepower they have in this matchup. So I will ride with the Ravens to score more than 32 points on Sunday for my favorite bet. Ed, any reads for you on that game between Baltimore and Cincinnati?
I think it's interesting that everyone's been talking up Joe Burrow and he looks pretty good, but like he's not being asked to do much. So when I look at adjusted yards per pass attempt on offense, they're last in the NFL, even though some of his other numbers look pretty good. So I think there's a good reason to stay away from that. I mean, it's just because when you're not doing anything and you're not throwing kind of intermediate at all, it requires a really high efficiency rate in order to get that done.
Well, the other thing too is when he has thrown deep, it's been hideous levels of efficiency. Whether it's due to AJ Green not being 100% or whatever the reasoning may be, the efficiency on deep balls for Burrow has been really, really bad so far.
Right, but yeah. So we'll see how that. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't want to be too much of a Joe Burrow hater, but I still have my doubts, and there's been a lot of kind of good chatter out there, I feel like, and I don't know if it's necessarily warranted.
Yeah, it's a tough situation because you always have to juggle, do I put more stock in pass catchers or offensive line? Because the pass catchers for Burrow, even with A.J. Green being downgraded and C.J. Uzomah being out, like they're pretty good. Like Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, they can get the job done, but the offensive line is terrible. And I tend to skew more towards offensive line than wide receivers. So I don't really know what to think of Joe Burrow yet because I think that it's tough to judge him behind such a hideous offensive line. And I think it'll be even tougher this week with Baltimore having the defensive front they have. I want no part of anything that involves the Bengals scoring points. So in a way, the Ravens team total does involve that because, I mean, if it's a 28-0 win, they can put up 28 points, win comfortably, and they can coast the entire second half. So I do need the Bengals to do something, but hopefully they just do enough to help the Ravens get over the total of 32 there. That is all the time that we have for today here on Covering the Spread, but do not forget we are back again tomorrow talking some college football with Richard Johnson. We're going to get you set for this upcoming week of college football. We're talking Clemson versus Miami and several other high-profile games with Richard. That'll be posted on the Covering the Spread podcast page, so make sure you subscribe to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts, and if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Ed, what is going on for you over at the Power Rank and on the Football Analytics Show?
Yeah, so over at the Power Rank, I'm still writing my email newsletter every day. I've definitely been saving some analysis on NFL totals, both what is actually being scored in games and what the markets are doing. All that goes in my newsletter. You'll get that before I tweet it or anything else. So please go sign up for that. It's up over at thepowerrank.com.
Alrighty, make sure you follow Ed on Twitter as well at The Power Rank. I am at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. Thank you to Dr. Eric Eager of Pro Football Focus for swinging by and breaking down week number 5. Follow him on Twitter at PFF_Eric and check out his podcast, the PFF Forecast Podcast, to get more betting insights from Eric. We'll be back with you once again tomorrow to talk some college football, but until then, good luck with your bets. Talk to you again soon. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.